we'll be delighted to utilize his experience and his stature. If we had known earlier he is coming, then so thank you for being gracious, Raghu Saab. And I refuse to start the panel. The two gentlemen there, my friends, either sit down. Hello? Can you sit down? Because otherwise it gets distracting, or you can, yes, thank you. Please, can you give them a bigger round of applause? They came on time, we are running late, they've been patient. Yes. And clapping is good for heart muscles. First of all, I did not decide the topic, Garima did. If I decided, I won't put this top there because there's no balancing required. You know, because legal roles are business roles. So I made a presentation in the morning and yesterday, so I really, but the segue that we are talking is how do you, let me read the panel topic a little differently. It says balancing law and business, preparing future lawyers for in-house roles. It is asking GCs on the panel on how is the role of GC changing. How is the role of legal services changing? And I must tell you, I was listening to the last 7-8 minutes of the last panel. I did what most people at my age then did, but I didn't go into that field. I did BTech Computer Sciences, then I went to a business school called MDI. I'm from the first batch, 30 years back, and I came into media accidentally, right? So really, I think the choices that we make, you know, there is a, you know, Dr. Singh also talked about choices versus chances. I think your choices will lead you to the right decision. Just believe the universe, do the right thing. I'm a Hindu. I believed in my life is preordained, prarabdha, right? But we got to make the right choices to be able to achieve what is preordained for us, so to say. But all of us have a unique journey. As I said, I did engineering, business school, but now I'm in the media. So now let me come to the topic. Let me reframe the topic and start with Dr. Gemawat and go around the house. Is how do you prepare young professionals who are entering the legal domain or people who are on the law firm side who aspire to be a GC? What's changing in the profession? How should they mold themselves? Dr. Gemawat, your opening comments.
The moment you started the word this, balancing law and business, and I think Garima might have chosen this subject and these words for the simple reason that the way in which the legal profession is being perceived, particularly from an external lawyer standpoint and from an in-house standpoint, the perception is that external lawyers are conservative in their approach, they don't have business orientation, and in-house counsels should have business orientation. But the fact remains, I agree with you, that there is, in effect, no difference, because if the external lawyer is not having a business orientation, ultimately he will have to exit from the legal ecosystem, because ultimately everything gets governed with the economic growth, with the economy and with businesses and all that. Now, as far as your specific question on in-house counsel is concerned, initial comment, I would say that profession gets developed and evolved depending on the progress in the economy. And the progress in the economy is determining, so as we are seeing many professions getting developed, like from a computer science to data science to, many other professions and engineering discipline, and so is the case as far as in-house counsels are concerned. The profession has evolved, and I'm right now not limiting my comments in terms of that distinction is the business orientation. I think it is much more beyond that. And a couple of points which I would mention, and I will, wait for the second round. This is the same thing which happened in the United States. And if you people remember, and we used to talk about the Kravitz system. The Kravitz system was nothing but the law firms becoming prominent. They were the full service law firms. They used to hire the best of the talents from the best of the law schools, and they used to motivate them in terms of incentivizing them, giving them share in profits and all that. And that is what continued till 1980s in the United States market. Thereafter, the corporates started believing that why aren't they spending so much of money? The same kind of services they themselves can hire through an in-house counsel. They can hire the best of the people, from the law schools as in-house counsel, and the same services can be provided in-house. Now, the same status or the same kind of the profession is getting evolved today in India, and that is exactly the reason why we are discussing this topic today, that in-house counsel has become so prominent that organizations are today believing that their in-house departments and law departments are nothing but mini law firms, having say 50 lawyers to 100 lawyers or 150 lawyers. Now, there they are providing the services in-house only, and they are not they are not dependent on the external law firms. Now, this change is happening in the Indian context, and that is where I think that lots of opportunities from external lawyer becoming in-house counsel, because they are providing services in almost all kinds of areas. So this is what my initial comment would be. I want to comment further in terms of as the market is changing, we are at the fourth industrial revolution, and fourth industrial revolution is nothing but more and more regulatory mechanism besides, in multiple industries. But then there are issues where we believe that the fourth industrial revolution, which is largely based on artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, where regulatory mechanism perhaps might not work because organizations and corporates would be dominating the market. And there you feel that in-house department should be so competent that they should be complying with all that ESG kind of requirement, or the GRC, which we talk about, governance, risk and compliances. And that is where I think the profession is evolving, and profession is taking a different shape and dimensions today. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the opening comments. Mr. Gulati, your opening comments.
My opening comments.
It's working.
It's working, thanks. So, this role of an in-house counsel is very critical. And as Sanjeev ji just explained, it requires a competence in terms of business knowledge, business orientation, and at the same time, an in-house counsel is required to have the right experience on law and right understanding on law. And once having this combination of right legal knowledge or legal experience and combined with the business experience, I think that is what business looks at. And business want to really see how do you educate the board or make the board understand the risk. How do they comply? Even the largest corporations today continuously push themselves to know how are they going right in terms of governance, in terms of the compliances, in terms of various applicability on their businesses, and how do they really protect themselves and ring fence themselves within the framework of the law where they operate. So there it is very much expected that as an in-house counsel, there are areas of specialization, particular diverse businesses or diverse groups who are dealing into multiple businesses, like somebody dealing a single group operating into oil and gas business, operating into aviation business, operating into many more retail business or pharma business, etc. So a single group operating into multiple businesses requires a specialized experience. So thereby the in-house counsels have the very big opportunity. The team, the future in-house counsels, we say the future budding lawyers who step into this side of the fence, and they are expected to learn those nuances of the business and learn how to implement the law as part of that business. So, and the areas of specialization in terms of how do they draft the contracts, how do they do the negotiation of those contracts, how do they, create a compliance framework for that very business so that the business is not stepping outside the compliance and outside the regulatory framework. So these are very critical areas where business looks up to the lawyers, and the in-house lawyers are the most closest link between the regulatory framework, and I call the in-house lawyers as the officers of the court. And they act as officers of the court. To ensure that they are making the business compliant, with all regulations, and they make sure that they do not step out of that. And third, they ensure that the businesses are trained to do the compliances and governance.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. Mr. Gambhir, your comments.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Batra, for inviting me here. I think, to my mind, this topic seems to be very relevant in my personal view. Why? Because, when we're talking about the balancing law and business, particularly preparing future lawyers for the in-house roles. And that's where a lot of lawyers are actually facing issues, particularly the young lawyers, I'm saying, because you have a lot of university people and the young lawyers are here. I'm just giving an advice. What happens is it's actually very, very difficult to maintain balance at times, particularly when you are young and you are a younger lawyer for a small company or a diversified company. I'll give an example. When I started my career at a very young age, maybe around 25 years I'm talking about, I was a company secretary of the company, and accidentally I became the legal guy because, then they gave me the legal department. I was not even a law graduate at that point of time. And when I took the charge of the legal, frankly, I had no idea about the business. So the first and foremost thing for a lawyer or a young lawyer I would advise is that you need to understand the business very well, all the dynamics, nitty-gritty of the business, the situations, the things. So I had no idea about the business much, and then, my first assignment in some of the contract issue and all, I was under the pressure by the business head, because I was very young. I was under the pressure. No, it's a very, very important project. We will be losing this, that, and all. And I was under pressure. I did some mistake at that point of time, and that was where I learned a lesson, because I was told that whose mistake is that, and I learned a lesson that number one, to knowing your business is very important before you join the organization, and number two, that once you are a young or you are not at a top management and hierarchy, which nowadays in-house are into top management, so it's not much of the issue, then you need to understand that how to make a balance between that. Because when you're talking about the compliance issue or regulatory issues, sometimes they don't understand, because compliance, I'm saying that I'm ensuring the compliance. But when I say regulatory, there could be an anticipated risk issues associated with that, which may not be able to anticipate. I need to see, there could be some discussion paper in the parliament or some other paper, which tomorrow the law would be changing and there could be a risk which is not anticipated today. So these are some of the issues, and when you are young and you are pressurized by the business, particularly I'm telling you because, the law students, when you're pressurized by the business, एक situation आती है कि जब एक मेरे को दो लाइनें याद आ रही हैं, अगर आप ज़्यादा दो तो मैं बोल दूँ. आपने सबने सुना होगा, मेरे दिल के किसी कोने में एक मासूम सा बच्चा बड़ों की देख के दुनिया बड़ा होने से डरता है. At that point of time you realize कि नहीं यार, I'm not part of that. So I think it's very, very relevant to manage the business and the law, and you have to understand that the business is very well understood by law before you think. I think in our organization now what we do is we make sure that the lawyer or the legal or the IT and other people are involved initially from the project time, make a task force, and make sure that the lawyer or the law, even if it's a law firm or it's a legal law person or it's a company secretary, risk guy, internal audit required, they should be involved from the day one so that they can advise you what is going wrong, where you need to anticipate the risk, etc. So I think to my extent, in my view, I think it's a relevant topic, frankly, Dr. Batra.
Thank you. Of course, I said yesterday, I said 10 ways how the legal services profession is. You're an expert, I'm an outsider, you're a doer, leader. But the three things that are relevant to this panel is, one is we'll be a 10 trillion economy. And our GDP income has grown 7 times, may not be good enough still. And the law schools, how many law schools do you think are there? So 1800, and if you take the other departments and all, 2500. So it's
population size of 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion, right? And how many law schools should we have, even if 10% of the population needs to be kept?
Second is, one trend that is research and numbers be around is that in law firms, a lot of professionals are non-legal professionals. They're domain experts. They're like, there was a colleague earlier who's an ESG, who's a lawyer and who's looking at ESG. We'll come to that. But Mr. Kalra, your opening comments.
Thanks, Mr. Batra and the co-panelists. They've already spoken to multiple things, but to take it forward, for me, in-house counsel is basically what the topic also says about the person who has the knowledge of business very well And with the business, he should also have sound knowledge of law, the law which is there and which is going to come up. Because he has to provide the risk basically to the company. And with the risk, he also analyze that what future is there with the new project or project which he is doing into. So when you work on a group basis, basically there are a lot of things which comes to your table. We were discussing a few minutes before that today in-house is not an in-house person who is going to be a postman, which Mr. Raghu also said back. He's not a postman basically, which we say. He's a person who should have sound knowledge, can give who will be agile to give the reply immediate basis with his note that what is expected by him, not waiting for the law firm to come up and give the knowledge. And rightly said, today as an in-house is not an in-house person, is having a law firm inside the team, means every person he is sitting here must be leading around 10 to 15% in team, minimum right now. So it's a small law firm in a company which works 24/7. It's what a law firm is, a law in-house oil series. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kalra, for those brief comments. Ms. Bhalla, you've been part of a company which has become so large, it's done an IPO, and it's in a new age, so to say, domain. So, what are the new knowledge orientation that existing lawyers in law firms or in-house counsel need to adopt? Because you work for a certain kind of company. I would also additionally want your inputs on that.
Sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity on the panel. I mean, first of all, I echo with a lot of what was already said, that ultimately, I think you are the best friend and the best advisor to your clients who, instead of being external, become internal when you move in-house, right? At the end of the day, they're your clients. So you have to be trusted, you have to be on call, you have to be available, you have to be nimble, you have to know, I think, every law that sort of applies to your industry. So if you're in-house and very often, you're doing business A or business B. It's not the breadth that you probably get at a law firm, but maybe you get the depth. So you have to get in and know every single sort of legislation your business or your company. And not only the existing law, but also what's anticipated. So I work in the digital market space, and there are a lot of changes that we are seeing from a regulatory standpoint from various angles. So I think it's no longer just about the practice of law, it's about also a practice of policy. It's also about how, interestingly, Annurag, how you manage the media. Because today, whatever you do, I think before you know it, it's out there in the media, in the public domain, it's being sort of handled in a particular manner. And I think a lot of your job also goes in making sure that the right narrative is out there in the right manner. From a legally sort of compliance standpoint as well, which I think is different from what at least I anticipated before moving in-house. I also think the pace at which you're required to advise has changed. And maybe this is, again, where I work, where everything, happens on an almost 24-hour, 72-hour kind of basis. So the pace at which you're required to provide advice, the pace at which you're required to tell somebody, yes, go ahead, no, you can't, let's do this differently, let's look at risks. I think that has changed. So it's absolutely critical to have not only an in-depth understanding of the law, the policy, also sometimes regulatory thinking, because not everything in law is black and white, as all of you know, but also a complete understanding of the business and, more importantly, the business objectives. Because most of the time, you end up saying, yes, you can do this, but let's do this differently because you'll still meet your business objective. Maybe it'll take a little more time, maybe it'll be a little more cost, but the way to do this in a compliant manner is to do it in this manner. So that doesn't work without sort of this kind of an in-depth understanding. What we do now in-house, in our team at least, is catch up every 2 weeks, once in 2 weeks, for a training session on the law, on legal updates, invite business leaders to come and address the team so that we understand every nuance and real-time changes, and that's helped a lot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bhalla. I must tell you, whether you're a corporate leader, you're an entrepreneur, you're a head of a state, seizing the narrative is key to winning. Okay, I think media has a role, but I think we should do our role a little better than what we do right now. Mr. Raghu, you've seen many seasons. And again, this kind of debate has been on for a while. Your opening comments.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Batra. As always, you put me on the spot. And I was not prepared for this, but very interesting topic. But first and foremost, because there are a lot of people from law school, don't be scared. This is a great profession. Have all the enthusiasm as you walk into the profession. Secondly, a lot has been said. In-house is not a job, first and foremost. It's another stream of profession. Please get that clear. I can say that with fair amount of confidence because I've finished my career as an in-house counsel after 33 years. I left defense. I cleared NDA, I left that. I cleared engineering, I left that. I cleared civil services, I left that. And I became finally a lawyer. So, and am I happy? Very happy. The second thing, to everything that my panelists said, you must know the business as you grow in your role in the job. If you are an in-house counsel, that is true for an external counsel who's advising you or an internal counsel. If you don't know the business, your advice is of no use. It's like a tissue paper, you can put it in the dustbin. And who better than you? Something that I used to do very regularly in all through is that if there is a youngster who joins, put him on a 6 month, because we learned it from Unilever where we had to undergo 18 months training before you actually started advising the business. 18 months starting from marketing, merchandising, transport, logistics. We did everything before we were brought into the legal desk and start advising the business. Now, it's not possible. Unilever is an institution. It's not possible to do that. But please spend a fair amount of time going to the factories, going to your service center, whether you are in service sector, you are in manufacturing sector, learn the nuances. You'll be surprised that some of the things that you have fixated in your minds will suddenly change when you go to the factory. When you see the people working at the factory, there's, in many of you, in the factory, if a particular product is being made, they look at how much time it takes for the product from start to finish. And for that, the kind of efficiencies that they have to build in terms of just hand movements and leg movements, eye contact, machine dealing, all that. Because the day you appreciate the business, your legal advice will be relevant to them. Because you are talking from a position of strength and you also have the legal knowledge. Secondly, don't be scared of your jobs. Most often I've seen this in my full 3.5 decades. People tend to say yes when they should say a no, because there is always this unconscious, subconscious feel, if I say no, what's going to happen to my increment? Nothing is going to happen. I have not seen a single person losing a job for saying or standing behind the truth or saying the right position of law. It's when you try to tinker with the law to please somebody, that's where you get into trouble. Please, it is a profession. Don't be in the business of law, be in the profession of law. That's my simple one-line advice to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think every bit of advice is welcome, but the bit that you should know a bit about every domain firsthand, that's why levers you have to, in a lot of organizations, you go through sales, because that's really the lifeblood in some way of the organization. Now let me come to a little more nuance. When you enter the profession, and I'll start this time from there, what are the changes? What needs to be 1, 2, 3? You've already said, go department by department. You've already said, on a philosophical level, say the right thing even if you're unpopular. But what are the 1 or 2 functional things? Say somebody wants to switch from a law firm to a, because lots of my friends whom I know, they feel the grass is greener on the other side. They want to switch. What's your advice to them?
Sir, I know I hear a lot about when people come from law firms and who want to join in-house. They believe quality of life. They believe it's a 9 to 5 job. They feel, it's more clear-cut, whereas in law firm there is a lot of ambiguity in terms of their growth and all that. Trust you me, it's no different. I have never gone home before 9:30 in the night. In my last, I can say this for every day of my career. And I don't know if any of my colleagues sitting here who reach home on weekdays before really late hour. That is one. Secondly, I think I'm not against anybody switching from law firm to in-house or vice versa. But please do your research in terms of where you are going. Because if I have known so many, in fact in my team I have got 6 lawyers, all from tier 1 law firms. And after 6 months they tell me, this job is more difficult than what we are doing there. Not because that they're unhappy, but there's a way of doing it. And here,
It's different.
the other one difference between law firms and all that, in law firms you take ownership of your client, but if something goes wrong, you don't lose a job. But in in-house, you take the responsibility, you are accountable, your chairman relies on what advice you give them. And please, therefore, you play a far more significant role in advising the leadership team inside the company than an external lawyer. I have had several instances where there's an opinion, there are senior managing partners who have come, advise the chairman, the meeting is over, then the chairman asks, CV, what is your view? That's where the buck stops. So you got to draw, and therefore I say it's a legal profession. You must know the law much better even than your external counsel. You know, when you advise. If you don't know that, you will be on shady grounds.
And that's where the balance between law and the domain expertise, I won't call it
Yeah.
business.
And be reasonable. Don't have to. I have seen many people take very conservative views. No. At the end of the day, please realize business has to sustain. It has to be sustainable growth, ESG, all this. These are all. And if I heard the colleague earlier talking about BRSR and all that. If your business is doing well and if you are following the right policies process, SEBI has not come out with something that was not anticipated or that was not something that the large companies were doing. You know, just as a small snippet, the Provident Fund Act that you see, which came as an act in 1950, was there in the Tata Group from 1936. Jamshedji Tata was the first one who started Provident Fund in the company. So entrepreneurs by nature are not, barring a few of them, they are well-meaning people, they are entrepreneurs because they think differently. So to believe that entrepreneurs always want to do something hanky-panky, that's not a fair view. There will be outliers, and there have been outliers. But that is true in every profession. Tell me one profession where there are no outliers.
Absolutely. Ms. Bhalla, would you like to add to that in terms of, this movement between law firms and in-house counsel? Because there's somebody who's a classmate of my wife and he's in the legal profession. And he came to me saying, I work in a law firm. Now that you have a legal magazine, can you recommend me to someone? So I said, yeah, you're working in a good law firm. He said, a good firm. Why do you know? But for some of the reasons and some of the reasons. So is there an advice there? Grass is greener on the other side always.
Well, I've actually just seen both sides. I was a partner at a law firm before moving to Zomato. The grass is not greener on either side. I think both sides have their, both sides have their pros and cons. I think if you work at a law firm and if you work in a larger team, the chances are you'll get to do maybe a broader breadth of work industry-wise. Whereas, depending on which company you join in the in-house space, you will be looking largely at the business that the company does. I agree with you, Raghu. I don't think the work hours are any better in the in-house space. In fact, very often they're worse. So I think if that's the motivation, then that's probably not the right motivation. I think the work is equally challenging. I don't think you will have lesser of a challenge just because you're on one side or the other side of the table. I think the depth with which you get to know one business in-house is, of course, that much more than when you're in a law firm because you're dealing with the same set of internal stakeholders or internal clients on a daily basis, and you're doing everything, that has to be done vis-a-vis that company. I think that's the difference. But if I was to give you advice, I would say, look, there are law firms and companies and companies. Choose your teams widely. Look for growth, look for opportunity. And especially if you're starting out, look for places which will challenge you from day one, which will make you sort of study the law, make you go beyond maybe just the business of what the company is doing, engage you with law and policy, and look at every opportunity possible to learn. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, law is a lifelong journey of learning. I don't think anybody here or any lawyer will ever say that they've stopped learning. I think you learn on a daily basis, and as long as you're learning, it's great.
So I also seen both the sides. Started as a practicing lawyer, shifted to a corporate world. Yes, rightly said, both sides has there's pros and cons. It's not that easy to be in both the systems, but it's always better what choice you are into. Timings wise, very rightly said, I'm also fine that 9 to 9 is a job. It says 9 to 9, it goes beyond that also sometimes when the business challenges are there. So it's not that you placed very well. Only thing which I can say comparatively is a law firm or a legal side. When a company, you will get a growth on a structure basis, yearly wise. In a law firm, you may get growth on your working style wise, a month on basis also, but it depends on how you perform and how you work upon. That's only a challenge, a differentiation I can put in.
Mr. Gambhir, I've not seen too many GCs going back to law firms. I've seen some example in the last 4 years. And yesterday at our law firm conference, there were some examples given. But once a GC for lifetime?
No, I think I have seen many friends who have gone to the practice also after a couple of years in GC, because I think, even in-house lawyer, you are actually practicing law. That's true. The point is that you have external clients or you have internal clients. That's the only thing. So therefore, I have seen, sometimes even I think, यार देखो वो बंदा अपने target पूरे कर रहा है और फटाफट काम कर रहा है दिन में रात में कभी भी, and it's a very lavish life. Let's go to the law firm side, and why are we sitting in the GC role or in-house role? But I think I've seen many people. So I think both the side, they also think that the GC side is good. GC say that the law firm side is good. I think both the sides are equally good, and you need to do what your duties are. You need to advise your clients, and your clients, whether they're internal, they're external. You need to understand the business, whether it's your external clients or your internal client. So I think from my perspective, I don't see there is any much of the difference between both the sides, even if the remuneration wise or, the good lawyers are, in-house lawyers are, they are on the board also nowadays. In-house lawyer, for example, we have a corporate management board, so I'm a part of that. So there are people on the board of directors also, and they're enjoying their life in-house also. So I think I don't see much of the difference. It depends on how do you want to continue. But at the same time, once you are a GC or you are in-house lawyer, there are certain things, when you normally face. And that is one of them is, for example, I have given an advice to the board of directors. This is my advice, and I think we should do this, we should do this like this, and this is a very critical matter. They will definitely go, let's take an opinion from the external lawyer also. And when I say why, they'll say, okay, Sameet, you're right. The point is, even I don't feel bad in that, because I know that even if I am right, an opinion will definitely going to help to the board of director. Opinion will definitely going to help you tomorrow in the litigation or a case law. So that happens with the in-house lawyers. At times, it looks like that, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर है, they don't believe me or what. But the point is, then they advise you, no, it's okay. We understand, we respect your values, but at times we need a law firm opinion. Or for example, if it's a deal or a transaction, you definitely need a law firm, You in-house can't do the entire deal or entire transaction. And for example, if it is an international deal or something. So from my perspective, both the roles are very good, and wherever you are enjoying, you keep enjoying that.
Gulati sir, any divergence of views?
I think I quite agree with all the co-panelists, but I would also add here that it has got its own flavor. So as a counsel, if you have to see monetary wise, even beyond the sky, you can make money through your efforts. And the more one sharpens the skill, I think the opportunity to sharpen the legal skills is more on the practice side. And the depth of knowledge one gets and the confidence one gets in terms of the learning and enhancing the capability, plus also the ability to take decision Because when, as a lawyer, one advises the client, it's the firmness with which you advise and the client relies upon you. And his business decisions are dependent on the lawyer's advice. So I think that side provides you a very good in-depth abilities, knowledge in terms of the field of law. And when I started my career after passing through the law school, I chose to go to the practice side. I chose to go to the courts. I said the level of knowledge and the depth of knowledge one gets there, and not on the corporate side. So my recommendation always had been to the young lawyers who pass the law school should actually experience first 5 years on that side. Once having got that depth of the knowledge of the law and how the laws are applied and the confidence with which you advise your clients that they rely on your advice and take their business decision and risk, I think that's a kind of, one gets that feeling of achievement is great. And now switching over to the corporate side, when I switched over to the corporate side and when I jumped into this side, I was damn confident. I took a national role at a very early age with my limited experience of some 8-9 years. I could lead that role. I could lead only because I had gained that experience. I could firmly tell that this is how it is to be done and it is to be applied and the law needs to be applied and what are the risks and consequences. So that's where the in-house counsel role is again very, very challenging, very interesting. You have to be on your toes in terms of how to advise rightly. And you are the bridge between the internal and external side. And you are in a position to guide the board or guide the management or guide the business in terms of the applicability of the law, because the organization looks up to you to advise rightly.
Mr. Gemawat, your final word, and I want an input on this. I said that the GCs and in-house counsel these days talk about they being profit center. We save so much money in the litigation if it gone. So we've actually contributed to the bottom line. My friend Mr. Hemant Kumar from L&T was one day telling me a couple of months back that I saved my company 2,000 crores. And I asked him how, so he explained to me. So do you think GCs increasingly become contributors to the bottom line? They do through their advice. On critical issues, taking the right decisions means growth, right kind of growth. So I would want your input on that.
I think a very interesting question. I think, a couple of points which I want to mention. I'm not comparing the external lawyers with the, in-house counsel. Forget about the number of hours and the compensation. Perhaps in-house counsel must be fetching more compensation as compared to external lawyers. So forget about that part, and number of hours might be similar in nature. But then what makes in-house counsel distinct from external lawyers is the delivery and the accountability. And the delivery and accountability is so critical for the organization that the whole business is dependent on that. The fact remains, Mr. Batra, that today all industries are highly regulated. But then we perceive legal issues only from the perspective of some dispute resolution, that we have saved this much of amount in this particular transaction, etc. But that a lot depends in terms of structuring of the transaction. Today, if you open the newspaper is full of reports, either on one or the other legal issues, either approvals from the government, some investigation related issues, or some transaction related issues, or some one or the other disputes. Now, just see, all these issues ultimately, just appreciate this, economy of $3.5 trillion economy, it is governed by whom? By the corporate sector. Who is advising the corporate sector in terms of driving all those transactions, disputes, etc.? Somewhere the in-house counsel. And that is exactly the reason why his role becomes so critical and important. Now, as I said, that all transactional work, because of the regulatory environment, end up having the counsel of the in-house counsel, the general counsel, and he would be the instrumental in terms of driving all those things. And ultimately, it's not the bottom line in terms of only the dispute resolution and saving money in that. It's much beyond that. Dr. Batra, few years back, from your stage only, in one of the conversation, I coined the term that what is that in-house counsel's role, and I use the terms that he is the strategizer for the business, he is the enabler for the business, and he's protector of the business. And that is how I define his role, and which we are seeing today. Absolutely, absolutely. And fact remains, and I normally say that some of the organizations where we in fact run a mini law firm, as I said, the 100 lawyers of a legal department. So it's not a coordinator kind of department. They are effectively doing all kind of legal work. Of course, for expertise, you keep on engaging multiple experts from external lawyers, but then most of the things are being done in-house. So I think this needs to be perceived and seen in that context only. And I see, and as Raghu rightly pointed out, that it's a distinct discipline today. As in my opening comments, I said that the profession is getting evolved. Multiple professions get evolved with the growth in the economy, and that is exactly the reason I see a distinct kind of in-house counsel practice in the times to come.
Thank you so much. We'll take very quick comment and close the panel, and if there are one or two questions, we'll take very brief questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying that as an in-house counsel, when you said that we add up as a profit center, but we make the balance sheet healthy. We make the balance sheet so clean that, you know, they get the investment opportunities from the investors.
Compliance and governance has a very big role to play the right growth of the company. Any questions to the panel? Yes, we're running late, so very short comment, sir. Very short.
We see today that legal education and management education are getting merged together. So the double degree program.
Are they? I'm not sure.
Double degree program, if you just look at, the first degree is giving the normal degree, whether it's BBA or BCom, and second degree is a law degree. Number of courses if you look at, 24, vis-a-vis another 24. Now, what I'm trying to say, comment, that these future lawyers who are getting with these degrees, like any management professional joining any corporate sector, they join in a functional unit. So they may join in a functional unit, but subsequently they rise to the level of general manager and they become the CEO and sit in the board. So is it not the future lawyers are going to join as a functional unit of the in-house, and then gradually they are flourishing and taking the role?
Happened. Many lawyers have become CEOs of the business. And one example is Indigo. You remember that gentleman, he became a CEO, Mr. Ghosh. He was working in a law firm, and then ultimately he became a CEO. So there are many more examples of that. So it's all, see, when we talk about a management role, the management role in a business means that not just you advise, but see that the advice gets translated into the business actions, and ultimately a 360-degree approach is used to implement them. So don't, because most of the time the in-house business side, when we talk to business side says, don't just tell us what we need to do. Show us that how it can be implemented, and show us that it can be, you know, streamlined effectively.
Thank you so much.
Sir, just to add to that, if I can. Sir, it's just a question of evolution. If you look at the United States of America, at least 40% of the CEOs have a law degree, and they have all grown from in-house. Pepsi had their chairman as their general counsel, who finally became the chairman. In India, the evolution has happened. He mentioned about Mr. Ghosh. There is Kalpana Morparia, who was ICICI general counsel, who is JP Morgan CEO. So it's just a matter of evolution. The point that needs to be understood, which I think each of the panelists said, as you are advising, you must also know the business, understand the management, learn the management skills. It is not, these are not two things exclusive to each other. You know, both are inclusive. The sharper you are there, the more you are involved in the business, but not forgetting your role as a lawyer, you'll grow, and it's only a matter of time.
Thank you, Mr. Raghu has summed it up very well. I don't need to sum it up. Please give our panel a big round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Gemawat. Thank you, Mr. Gulati. Thank you, Mr. Gambhir. Thank you, Mr. Kalra. Thank you, Mr. Bhalla. And thank you, Mr. Raghu.